apologize. Especially bad tonight. I don't know why. So I hope you can hear me. It's hard for me to even raise it. So even the water is not helping. Well, I'm getting old. That's a fact. So okay, you can stop recording. So this will be my voice.
Introduce you quickly. Yep, I'll just quickly introduce you and then. So I am so delighted to introduce one of the brightest lights in New York astrology, as well as in global astrology, our very own Mayora Epstein. You know, I once had this dinner with Rob Hand, and he just sort of turned to me and said, he's like, you know, Danny, I blend ancient and modern every day. And I don't believe in any of these artificial divisions that people create. He says, I get up every morning and I just want to do the best possible astrology. And out of all of my colleagues and teachers that I've studied with, Mayor Epstein to me has come up with one of the most dynamic and exciting combinations of the ancient tradition as well as some of the cutting edge work of Uranian astrology. She is a translator. I have several of her translations. She translated Ibn Ezra. She actually got a manuscript from the Vatican Library, which is pretty amazing, and she translated that. She also translated a lesser known work that's really interesting, which is an early Kabbalistic text, sort of the first Kabbalistic text of them all, which is very laconic and very unusual, but it's a really fascinating translation. She is one of the most important teachers in the country. She teaches all of the NCGR certifications and is incredible with the astronomy and has brought healing to so many people. So please warmly welcome Mayora. We're so happy to hear you.
I'm humbled. That's all I can say. I always say when I'm introduced, I get tired just listening to all the things that I've done. Yeah. Thank you for coming. This place is like a second home to the Uranian Society. We used to meet here for many years, every year actually, until COVID came along. So speaking here for me is like homecoming in many ways. So I'll speak about the Uranian Society again later. So let me just follow my own lecture. All your questions are included here, and even some that you didn't ask. So just be patient and just follow the presentation. I have lots of notes on the screen, and I read from my screen. You have it all there, and I will elaborate on what needs to be elaborated. So the Uranian astrology is celebrating the centennial. A few days ago, October 31st, was 100 years from the foundation of the Hamburg School. It was called the Hamburg School at the beginning. It's still called that, but most people, it's not well known as Uranian astrology, the Uranian system. No, that's not what I mean. I'm confused with all this. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the beginning very briefly. And before I even continue, I have so much material. And most of you, all of you know a lot about the system. That I know. Yeah, I know many of you, almost all of you. So most of it will not be new to you, but it's the whole package that is important. So I'll be speaking very fast. And with the idea that you're not learning it tonight, you're getting a taste of it. For those of you who don't know it, you're getting a taste of it, impression, something to remember, to follow later. But my goal is to present the whole system, all the highlights, but very fast in a way that's coherent. So that's my goal. And Danny, I rely on at least an hour and a half, okay?
That's fine.
Good. Okay, good. So the beginnings. Julian can stand here, it's much better. Okay. So the Uranian system was first known as the Hamburg School, in German, the Hamburg Schule. And it was created by, the system was created or started by Alfred Witte. And it started around World War I, around that time, 1913. He did serve in the army, but he started it unrelated to the army. And it came to light in a series of lecture given, I'm sorry, I used to stand here, okay? Given by Witte in was known as the Kepler Circle. Note the word Kepler, it will come up again. So the group was called the Kepler Circle. And he was working on his own, and then he was invited to give a talk to the Kepler Circle. And only recently I found out that the first talk that he gave for the Kepler Circle was not about the Trans-Neptunian or any of that. It was one of the house system, the Earth system. I'll mention it later, maybe. Anyway, so that was the first time he spoke to them was, I can't remember the year, but 19, I'm losing my own. 1990. Yes. Okay. So he was active until 1923 in Hamburg, and the work was carried on by his friend and disciple and follower, Friedrich Sigeron, and others. And he did not write the system down. His followers, especially Sigeron, wrote it down, put down the whole teaching. Okay, now the in the early 30s, in the mid 30s, 1936, the system came to the United States by Richard Sveller, Richard Sveller, and he translated it from German into English. He translated the book known as the Rules Book. We'll talk about it later. So once it came here, it found a home, in a big home, and became popular here, more popular than it is now. And many people followed it and practiced it, and it had quite a heyday until recently. So 100 years of continuous interest in the system. It was not called Uranian at the time. I can't remember how it was called the Hamburg School. I can't remember who dubbed it Uranian System, but it stuck. Even in Germany, they don't call it the Hamburg School. Even in Hamburg, they call it the Uranian System. So it really stuck, that name.
Miata,
When it came here.
Miata, can you hear me?
Before World War II.
No, she can't hear me.
Oops.
We hear you.
I don't know.
I know this is so
the
funny.
Beginning. The picture,
Yeah.
by the way, is the Congress, 1926, when they stood in front of the Bismarck Memorial in Hamburg, and they took this picture. This one is Witte, this one is Witte, and this one here is Friedrich Sigeron. And this is 1926. Now we come to the Uranian Society, our Uranian Society, and two of my colleagues are right here. Danny mentioned Faith, and we have Jamie. So we have good representation of the Uranian Society here tonight. And the Uranian Society was founded in 1980, and Charles Emerson was the founding father in a way. He was the moving force behind it. So it started in 1980. I joined the Uranian Society 1983, I think. That's how far I go. Okay. And then in 1985, it became a SIG of the NCGR, Special Interest Group. So this is the longevity that we have here. We have a website. This page is the homepage of the website. So you can go to uraniansociety.com and you'll see this. And this is when it became was founded as a society. It was Charles' birthday, Charles Emerson's birthday. You'll find articles and so on. You'll find other topics if you want to contribute or read or come up with questions or ideas. Let me know. So far I'm still doing the webmastering of this site. So this is your connection with the Uranian Society, and you can always reach out to me directly or to my colleagues. And you can get more information later if you want, or speak to them also. So since you're not newcomers, there's not much I need to cover here. Basically, what I want to point out, and I will flesh it out a little later, that the whole system is a 20th century development, and Danny said that, but which took us all into the modern time. But foundation that hark back to classical principles, and I will mention it later. So it's not out of the blue, it's not out of the sleeve, not out of the hat. It has a good foundation in classical astrology all the way back. Even though it looks like it on face value, looks like a weird animal, but it's not. It's really thorough and profound. There's a lot of profundity in the system. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing. Historical background, main feature and uses, interface with traditional astrology. I will touch on that because I never move without traditional. Always, always, always. I integrate the two. And then demonstrate with charts. Hopefully I'll have enough time. So the topics that I will cover, and you can see topics that you asked about before, and even those that you did not mention. So I'm going to cover very briefly, like I said, like a marathon lecture, but I will touch upon system origin, which I started, essential features, about aspects, some important discussion on aspects, the dials, the well-known, the rotating dials, symmetry, such as midpoint and other things, the Aries point, which you call the world point, the Aries point, the Trans-Neptunian planets or points, and interface with tradition, spin the dial. So this is the plan. It's a tall order. Note, very important. So you don't think it's a separate animal. It's not separate. It's something that works extremely well together with the traditional, classic, Hellenistic, everything. If you know what you're doing, you can see that. You can integrate the whole thing. So I'm saying, no, the Uranian system does not replace the traditional system. There was a time when people would, many years ago, would present the system like a standalone. We don't need anything. This is enough. No, it's not enough. You have to have the traditional, but it does not replace it, even though at times you might look like that. It does not. It works with it. So it enables the astrologer to notice details and specifics which otherwise might escape the naked eye. When I say naked eye, I mean the traditional chart that we just look at. That's the naked eye. And it's like putting a magnifying glass on a regular chart. That's the effect of it. Okay. Origins and influences. Again, I'm only touching just to show you the connections, the historical connections, such as classical Hellenistic. You never know, right? Anticia and the lots form zodiacal symmetry as basis for planetary pictures. So in the Uranian system, we talk about planetary pictures and symmetry. This comes from Anticia and from the lots. If you took any of my lectures on the lots, you would know what I'm talking about. The lot, especially fortune and spirit, a lot of fortune and a lot of spirit display between the two of them displays symmetry. Then we have, still in the Hellenistic, we have emphasis on planetary aspects, parenthesis, Ptolemy. Ptolemy stands alone among the ancients, and I'm not going to launch into a lecture on Ptolemy right now, but there are significant differences between Ptolemy and his contemporaries, such as Vettius Veles, significant differences. And Ptolemy is very interesting to study on its own and point it out. I do have a lecture which I did more than once. Actually, I'm going to do it January 4th, repeat a lecture on January 4th for the NCGR for members. And the title is Ptolemy, Kepler, and Alfred Witte, Strange Bedfellows, or Great Minds Think Alike. That's the title, long title. So I've done that lecture before more than once. from comparing, but comparing not to show differences, but to show similarities, to show that it's a thread. So astrology is astrology is astrology. That's the beauty of it, that you can study today, you can study material from 2,000 years ago, and you speaks to you. It's the same language. Same 10 planets, or 7 planets, if you will. Okay. So Hellenistic. Now we have Kepler. I mentioned earlier the Kepler Circle, the name of the group before they became the Hamburg School. They were for a reason. They were called Kepler for a reason. It's not just a nice word, because Kepler was an astrologer, and what he did is extremely interesting, and I will mention some of the points later. So from Kepler, we have the minor aspects. From Kepler, we have no use of zodiacal conditions such as dignity, debility. You don't find this at all in the Uranian system, the dignity, debility. And Kepler really thought it was all nonsense. Kepler said it was superstition, it's nonsense, this stuff, okay. No attention to rulership, same thing. We don't talk about rulership here. This is important, good or bad. In other words, what's considered good or bad in life for a person. Good or bad is determined by the essential nature of the planets, not by the aspects, as we'll see later again. It's not which aspect is made between planets, but which planets are in the aspect, which planets are talking to each other. That's a big difference. And last but not least, what I call the primacy or importance of the sun demonstrated in the use of solar arc directions. I love this. This is also from Kepler, and those people, the Hamburg School, they inherited all this kind of thinking, because they didn't have Uranian astrology. They had the classic. They came from the classic. They studied the classics. So they knew all that. It was not foreign to them. Okay. And then I added modern astronomy only because, and we'll see more details later, that it's also what I call origins and influences, because modern astronomy at the time, early 20th century, follows prior discoveries of Uranus, the asteroid, and Neptune. I'll bring it up again later. So all these is background, like foundational points. Okay, the heart of the system. The Uranian system is distinguished by the following features, and I listed 11 here. And each one is a topic. I'm not explaining now each topic. Some of them I will elaborate later. I'll elaborate on later. But now it's the list, just the list. Number one, the use of the Trans-Neptunian planet, we call the TNPs, known as hypothetical planets or points. Number two, and by the way, this is not a sequence of importance, not what's important, just a sequence I chose to put it together, that's all. It's not, the fact that number one is the TNPs does not mean that it's the most important thing. But I figured I'll list it first. For one thing, people who encounter the Uranian system, the first thing that they notice is the Trans-Neptunian planet, and that's so weird. It looks like a weird animal. So people have to wrap their brain around the whole thing. And in England, they hate it. They do not accept it. They don't want to hear from that. And that's why they like Ebertin, because Ebertin like surgically removed all the Trans-Neptunian planets, and he used only the technique without the Trans-Neptunian planet. So in England, don't talk to them about Trans-Neptunian planets. It's hypothetical. Nobody ever saw it. Not real. Anyway, that's a little comment. Number two, the use of the 0 degrees of the cardinal sign, which is we call the Aries Point or world axis, and the lunar nodes are treated as personal points on par with the ascendant and the midheaven. This is a mouthful, and I will elaborate on it later. But it's on par. It's not different. It's not, they have the same effect, same essence. All of this have the same essence in terms of functionality. I'm not being metaphysical here. I'm not being psychological. There's no drop of psychology in what I'm going to do tonight. I can guarantee that. It's all techniques and details. But it's important because all of us like the intellectual side of astrology. We like the purity of it, the pristine thing, the one that you can put it together technically and you have a whole construct and it works for you. And that's where I am, at least now. Okay. So, number 3, emphasis on hard aspect. I have a lot to say about it later. Hard aspect. And you see those all the way to this little one. So I will elaborate on this later, as you can see the numbers. Number 4, use of the rotating dials, 360 and 90. Intensive use of midpoint, and I mean intensive use of midpoint. Number 6, planetary pictures, which is symmetries of equal arc openings. So this is the definition of a planetary picture, some of them. Number 7, delineating the chart by aspects and planetary pictures without zodiacal signs, as I mentioned earlier. No zodiac, just planets and planets making contact. Not even what kind of contact, they make contact, that's it. And it's pure. It does not contradict the traditional, ever, never. It's just to work on this, and then you work on that, and then it begins to gel. I don't bastardize the system. I don't introduce zodiacal signs into this. I'm always careful not to bastardize any system. Keep it as is, and then you can later on find connection, but keep it pure. Okay. I said this already. Number 8, good or bad. Number 9 is interesting. It's not essential, but it's interesting by itself. The midheaven describes the I becoming. The ascendant describes the environment and others. This is a revelation that came to me when I started studying the book and how the book interprets all the stuff, and I realized that the midheaven is described kind of differently. And it did not contradict what I know. It added material, it added depth to what I knew about the midheaven by observing that. 10, focus on solar arc direction together with transits and forecast work. Predictive work, solar arc and transit, nothing else. I know that everybody does secondary progressions, of course, but the most buck for my money when I work with Uranian is solar arc. Yes,
Just really quickly, do you correct for Bija, which is the mathematical?
raise your voice.
I'm sorry, do you also account for Bija, which is the mathematical configuration that gives you an exact solar day?
I'm sorry, Danny, I need help.
She's asking, do
About
you,
Bija.
Bija, do you correct for the exact solar day?
Bisha?
Yes,
What's
so there's a calculation. We can talk about it after. So I'm guessing you don't, but there's something.
Get
that
me
you
later,
can-
okay? 'Cause
Fair
when I
enough.
hear you better,
Fair
I
enough.
apologize.
Okay.
I'm getting old, no denying that. Okay. Even house systems, there are house systems. The least known item in Uranian system is the houses, but there are house systems, 6 of them, and they're all equal houses, and they designed to illuminate relationship of the native with the world on various planes of life, etc. So like earth houses, meridian houses, sun houses, moon houses, and so on. This is classical. Perfection is done that way. Perfection is not just from the in Hellenistic. Perfection was not done only from the ascendant, done from the sun, from the moon. So again, ties to Hellenistic from here to there, it's connected. So these are what I call what distinguishes the system and really makes it stand apart. Essentials, of course, you all know it, most of you know it. Books and software, essential book, Rules of Planetary Pictures, we call it the rules. And you can get it from Michael Feist in Germany. You get the copy of the lecture and you can write it down and go there. So that's what I call essential, nothing else. That's all you need is that book. Then essential software, Nova Chart Wheel. It's made by Astrolabe, the makers of Solar Fire, or the distributor of Solar Fire. And You can use a discount code to get 15% off if you buy it from them. And then the Trans-Neptunian planets by themselves, you can find them in any modern software. I think nowadays they appear in every place. So you don't need to buy special ephemeris. I have ephemeris on my printout, hard copy ephemeris for all these things. Okay, so all these are essential. That's it. That's all you need. How to use the book, I cannot do it tonight. It's super interesting, but it's just very easy to use that book. It's a reference book. Reference book to keywords, keyword, no more than that, but it's so precise, so pristine. I love that book. Easy to use it to reference everything. Okay. So I'm not discussing the other books. This is the most recent version, so it looks like this, and you can get it from this URL from Victor Verlag. This is the publication, Michael Feist in Hamburg. Oops, 1 second. Yes. Now we get more serious. Aspects. So I'm getting more technical. Later, I know I'm not going to hear you. I apologize. So if you can hold on and maybe later grab me personally or something, because it's not going to be very good interaction. I know that. I apologize. Just stay with me. Everything is here. Okay. Almost there. Okay. So let's think about aspects. So I'll take you through it very, not slowly, but succinctly. Okay. So the 360 zodiac wheel is a wave. I call it a wave or a frequency, and I'm going to show you why I call it that. So if you think of the zodiac, you think of the ecliptic, which is the zodiac, it looks like this normally. You think about it this way. So you have the ecliptic is the blue circle, and the equator is the celestial equator, and they have a crossing point, and this is the 0 Aries, and this is the 0 Libra. So here it's described like that. The zodiac, here's the Aries and the Libra. So this part of the zodiac is south of the equator, this one here, south of the equator. This part of the zodiac is north of the equator, like here. But together it's a circle. And it can be described like this. If I describe it like this, north of the equator, south of the equator, it looks like a wave. So basically, this is this. Can you see that? Visually, make sense? This is this, right? Agreed? Okay, I see a few nods, okay. And now I'm saying that it looks like a wave already. So now I'm calling it a wave. And a wave, it has this amplitude above and below this line. So now I'm saying that the zodiac is a wave. And it's a wave, and its beginning is the 0, it ends up at 360. So this is the 360, and I describe it as a wave. Let's look at the wave again. So here's the wave again. And now you take the wave and this is the middle of it. So this is 180. This is the half of the wave, half of the 360. And it's 180 is here. And now we divide each part of the wave into a smaller wave. So the big wave contains a smaller wave. This one and this one. I'm sorry, this one and this one. So now we further divided the wave, and we have 180. Now we have 90 here. So this blue dot is 90 here and 90 here. Okay. Now we keep dividing, and we divide the 90, and we get 45. And if I could, I would divide it even further, and we get all the smaller numbers. So basically, it's a wave within a wave within a wave. These are the harmonics. This is called harmonics. I'm not getting into the definition of harmonics, but this is what's known as harmonics. A little definition is here. But as you can see, because of that, all the small ones are included in the big ones. Therefore, if you look at the 90 degrees, it's 45 plus 45. If you look at 135, you get 3 times 45. Look at 180, you get 4 times 45. So all the small numbers are included in the bigger number. Now we translate it back into the zodiac, into zodiacal signs, where we live constantly. And I'm saying that here's the wave again with all the divisions. This is the 180, this is the 90, this is the 45, and the yellow is even the 22 and a half. Okay, I can go all the way down. So this is the beginning, and it's 0 Aries. Here's the 180, and it's 0 Libra is right here. And now between Aries and Libra, which is 90, we have the 45, which is, I'm sorry, this is the opposition, the 180. So here's the 90. 0 Cancer is 90. And now you see that the 45s are all included. So I can look at this at the string of the signs in terms of 45, 45, 45, 45 repetition, not repetition, similarity. So 0, 45, 90, 135, 180, etc. These are the numbers on the strip of numbers. But zodiacally, the 45 is at 15 Taurus, another 45 is at 15 Leo, another 45 at the Scorpio and the Aquarius. In other words, 15 degrees of the fixed signs are in the sequence. So this is what this covers. So I didn't go below 45. I just used the down to the 45. So these numbers will come up again later. We'll see that. But this is how we translate these numbers into the zodiac. But we don't do it literally. The 90-degree dial does it for us. We have tools for that. But this is the theory behind it. So every 15 degrees of the cardinal sign is on the sequence. It's like a sequence or a frequency, the frequency of 45. Okay. So now we are going to talk about the dials. So that was my thing about aspects, to show you the thinking behind hard aspect. That's all. We'll come back to it. But that was the technical explanation, visual explanation for the hard aspect. And I just went down to 45. You couldn't do it graphically for the smaller number, but it's the same idea. Just keep dividing. So now we're going to be talking about the rotating dials, which are tools. I say the dial is not just a tool. The dial is a philosophy. It be as we'll see later. Okay, so the dials facilitate spotting aspects visually and effortlessly. So all those numbers that I elaborate on, use the dial. You don't even need to think. It's on paper. It jumps off the page, as you'll see. No effort, nothing. It's all visual. But it's fun to know what's behind that visuality. Okay, so we have two types of dial. We have the 360 and we have the 90-degree dial. This is a traditional chart. So we'll see how the regular chart becomes this one and how it becomes this one. The 360, I'm going to be very brief on that. Typically, when we say 360 in normal conversation, we think about this. It is 360, the 12 sides of the zodiac. But in the Uranian system, when we say 360, we refer to this one. In case you don't know, and I'm sure you all know, this is a rotating dial. It's not fixed. It's not an image on paper. That's not it. Here, it looks like a fixed disk. But I will show you later. I will turn on the software and I'll show you how it moves. So these are rotating. But right now, I have no choice. I have to show it as a fixed image. So as a fixed image, it's a disk. And it has all these, the red arrow, it's a pointer. And it has the other side of the red arrow here is an opposition. Then we have the squares, and we have the 45. This black dot is the 45. And we even have a 22 and a half, which is right here. All these aspects are marked as dots on the circumference of the dot. They're marked. And it all rotates. So this is the hard aspect. But this dial, the 360, also has a soft aspect, trines and sextiles. So it's also marked if you want them. Here is 60, and here is 120. So the 360 dial can find any aspect you want, soft or hard, fine. So we rotate it and we put the arrow on a planet, and then we see which other planets make any aspect.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do not use that. I use the 90, which you'll see in a minute. Most of us use the 90. You'll see it's more fun and more revealing, I would say. But we know, one second. Michael Fife always makes sure to tell me that the 360 came first. The 90 was invented later. This is the original, because using the 90, it's very easy to display, to find symmetries and planetary pictures and all that. So theoretically, this is the core. But the 90, which we're going to see, is different and more fun. Yes, Faith?
I was asking why anybody would use the because the 360 is very popular among very sophisticated Uranians. And you actually just said something about, I'm trying to speak up really loud.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And you just said something a second ago that got my attention, but I didn't quite hear the whole thing. It was about the benefit that the 360 gives you something about
Symmetry.
I forget what you said. Was it
Planetary
symmetry?
pictures and symmetry in
Symmetry,
in a direct kind of way. Okay. Again, I cannot take too much time to elaborate, but I'll say one thing. Again, I have so much to tell you, so maybe one day we'll do it in a more relaxed way. But all these tick marks around and around, each tick mark is a degree, tiny. So you don't get as much precision as I would like and as Faith likes to do with this kind of thing, because every degree is tiny. But other than that, it's the planetary pictures that is easy to see in a direct kind of way without twisting your brain.
You're saying it's easier to see the planetary pictures on the 360 than the 90?
You and I can see planetary pictures on the dial, but it takes a translation of the brain.
And you're saying that the 360 is the sort of entryway into seeing the
Yes. Actually, when I teach this, and I have taught this many times for the NCGR, online and privately, I always start with that because it's easier to wrap, for beginners, it's easier to wrap their brain around this thing that moves around, and it has all these aspect finders. So it's more easy to connect intellectually, mentally. People who learn it, it's easier to transition from this to this because it still has the 12 signs around and around. But I don't use it because I'm past it. I use the 90, as we'll see in a minute. Okay, so let me continue. Okay, but you need to know that it exists, and it's at the root of the system. Every time I talk about it, and Michael always makes sure, Michael Feist from Germany, he makes sure I remember that it was the first one, and that's what Witte used. He never fails to mention that. But yeah, but I like the 90. What can I tell you? So now I'm going to explain the 90-degree dial. So we start again with the zodiac. 360, 12 signs. So you take the 12 signs, and instead of looking at them at the circle, look at them at the strip. I call it the strip. 12 signs from Aries to Pisces, strip. Now, imagine that it's a strip that you can wrap around something. So you take a circle and you start wrapping the strip around, and the circle looks like that. So it has 3 sections, 1 and 2 and 3. Each section is 30 degrees, 30, total of 90, as you can see. That's how the circle is divided, 30. You wrap this around and you end up like this. Aries here, Taurus here, Gemini here. You continue. Cancer here, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. You see, they're arranged by the modality. So the modality is key here, modality. And this way you end up with this, it looks like this. all the cardinal signs end up here, all the fixed here, all the mutable here. So this is a schematic look of the dial. Later on, you'll see what it looks like in the software. But right now, this is schematic. So this is how the zodiac begins to look like that. And that's why we call it 90-degree dial, because it's 30, 30, 30. Okay, so far? These sections begin like that. The arrow, this section here, 0 degrees of cardinal, 0 fixed, 0 mutable. So this whole section is 0 to 30 cardinal, 0 to 30 fixed, etc. This is how it's arranged. Now we see how a chart looks like when it's transferred into this one. Oh, this is still schematic. I'll just spend a minute on this one. So here is the dial again. And the arrow is a reference point. Again, this dial will move around. It's not fixed in one place, but this is the schematic understanding of the structure. So we have the arrow. On the other side of the arrow, we have 45 because the total is 90. So this is 45. 45 from here to here. Clear? It's half the circle. And 45 from here to here. So that 45 from the arrow end up 15 fixed. Remember, I showed it to you earlier. So the 15 fixed is exactly on the other side. Do not call it an opposition. Students make the mistake of calling it an opposition. It's not bastardizing. It's mixing your metaphors, because opposition, we should use the phrase opposition only for 180, the traditional opposition. The fact that it looks opposition does not make it an opposition. So I call it on the other side. Do not call it an opposition. You're confusing yourself if you call it an opposition. It's not. So it's on the other side. So the arrow, which is moving, points to, gives us a 45. Keep dividing at the 45 and you get this one, 22 and a half. So 22 and a half is halfway between the two arrows. It's right here. And it happens here on this side, it happens to be 22 and a half cardinal. 45 divided by 2. We keep dividing the 22 and a half, and it becomes 11 and a quarter. Still cardinal here. Then, but it's around the wheel. So we have the 22 and a half here. We have the 22 and a half here. So this becomes a 7.5 mutable because it's here in the mutable area. Then we have the 11 and a quarter here and the 11 and a quarter here and so on. These dots are on the dial, visual. We don't have to draw them in. We don't have to calculate anything. It's all visual. It's so pleasant, so easy to work with because it's all visual. Okay, so if you have planets, a planet here, let's say if you have the sun here and Jupiter here and Mars here and the ascendant here, 4 points are connected. 4 points are connected together. What do I mean by connected? Because it's on these frequencies. All these frequencies that are included in one another. It's those, they resonate together. When planets are on these frequencies at the same time, they resonate together. What does it mean, resonate together? They interact. The only issue is how do you interpret? How do you read a chart? How do you take 4 points and interpret them together? How does it work? That's another story. The integration, the interpretation, I'm not covering it tonight. But
And these are what we know as the world points, right?
No, not yet.
No,
Not
what's
yet.
the
No,
20,
no, no,
22
not
and a
yet.
half,
Yes,
0,
yes, because this is, if you have a
7.5
planet,
mutable,
if you
yes,
have a planet at the 0 cardinal,
yes.
that planet is where the world axis, definitely 100%, and I have more to show you on that one. 100% yes. Planet that appears at the 0 cardinal, even a little after 1 degree into the cardinal, still works as a planet on the 0 cardinal. Okay, so this is the idea of planets appearing on the dots, but I have better examples of that one. So now the 90-degree dial, the way it looks in the software, which is right here. The 90-degree dial represents the modalities because I've showed you all these dots and all the arrows. they point to these hard aspects that we're working with, not the soft aspect. If you want soft aspect, go back to the 360, the previous dial, because I swear by hard aspect. My students know that I swear by hard aspect, especially in predictive work, but in the Uranian natal as well. So we're within the realm of the modalities. That's it. Modality cardinal, fixed, mutable. Okay. So I said all that, and when the disk is rotated, all hard aspects can be readily observed, as well as midpoints, and I will show you midpoints. So even midpoints with this software, easy breezy, no computation of all visual. So as an example, a regular chart, we have, let's say here is the cardinal area. In the cardinal area, we have Venus, with a Vulcanus on the area. I'm already including the Trans-Neptunian planets, even though I'm going to explain them later. So we have Venus in the early cardinal, we have Cupido, we have Poseidon, we have Saturn, we have Admetos. All these are cardinal. So here they are. Here is Jupiter is, I'm sorry, that's fixed. Cardinal, here's the Venus. Here, this is not included. I'm sorry.
Saturn.
Yeah, I did not include, I did not print out the Trans-Neptunian in this one, so you don't see them, but they're here, okay?
But you start with a low degree one.
Saturn, we have Saturn,
Mhm.
25 Capricorn, 25 Cardinal, right here.
Mhm,
But only Venus and Saturn,
mhm.
okay? But later on, we will see them all together. It's hard to demonstrate this without the Trans-Neptunian planet. It's dead. It's not alive without them. Okay, so this is the example. Now the fixed, we have all the fixed, the Jupiter, the Mercury, the Neptune. So you see they're sequenced from low number to high number, okay? Low number here is Jupiter at zero Aquarius. Because the dial is so pristine, it's so clear to understand what the number is, then notice that the degree numbers are not written around. There's no need. There's no need to write next to Venus the one Cancer, because you can see it visually. So it's really, I call it pristine, pure. No numbers, just visual. And the area, black and white area, they facilitate visually observing where it is, to spot it. That's the whole meaning. There's no special meaning to it. Only it black and white facilitates counting degrees and noticing. So every section is 5 degrees. Black and white, easier on the eye, that's it. So this is the dial. This is how the regular chart looks like. This one. Next. Midpoints. Later on, I will show you the dial in action, okay? Promise. But right now, I need to go to the points, and then I'll show you the whole thing in action. I'll explain the dial. So now I'm going to talk about midpoints. Oh, look at the color. It's dead. It looks different on my computer. Anyway. So, what's a midpoint? It's what it sounds like exactly. Middle point between two other points, two planets. So here's the wheel. Planet A, planet B. This would be the midpoint right here in the middle. And the slash A/B, I use it to indicate a midpoint. When I write things down, there's no font for that. So I just write A/B means the midpoint between A and B. So this is called the direct midpoint. This is the short distance from A and B. This is the short distance, but this point is also A and B. It's the same midpoint, but the long distance. So we can say that the midpoint of A and B falls on planet X. Simple. X can be here, or X can be here, still the same idea. So in our Uranian notation, we call it X equal A and B. And you can see it here. X equals, so the The fact that I write equal just means that it makes an aspect, that it's there, okay? Because that can be any aspect, as I'll show you later again. So in this diagram, X equals A and B. The midpoint of A and B falls on X, and it's right here. Okay. I wrote here the D for direct because solar fire does that. For some reason, they differentiate between direct and indirect. In my opinion, it has no meaning, but I include it because it's in the text. But it's the same thing. Aspect is aspect. So this is the direct, like falls right on. Now here is another situation. So here is X again, and here is B, and here is A. Okay? B and A and B. The midpoint of A and B is right here. So it does not fall directly on X, but it makes a square to X, square 90. So A and B is a square to X. I will still write it as X equal A and B, because in the Uranian thinking, it doesn't matter. It can be conjunct X, square X, 45X, it doesn't matter. If it makes a contact, it makes a contact. In other words, as I said earlier, it doesn't matter which aspect, as long as the contact and it's precise. With midpoints, I use tiny, tiny, tiny orb, and that's when it begins to shine. If you allow big orb, it's a mishmash. Everything works and nothing works. So tiny orb. Books will tell you to use, I remember even in the NCGR study guide, it says a degree and a half orb. I said, that's an ocean away. I never use that much for a midpoint. People use a whole degree. I don't do it either. For midpoint, I allow, for my satisfaction, maybe half a degree, maybe, or less. It depends also on which point I'm examining. If it's the sun and the moon, I will allow maybe a tad more, but not much. So when you're very precise in your work and you're very clear on what you allow and you don't allow, you end up not using everything, only what really works, what's tight, what's really to the point. So that way you eliminate a lot of stuff that you don't need to look at, because you look at that, it looks like a monster, all this thing. So you learn how to eliminate and stick with what is exact and works for you. This is apropos orbs. So you see here, we still have X, but look, A and B makes a square to X. Now here we have C and D, which is right here, and E and F. They both fall here. And E and F, C and D, and that makes a 135 to X. Fine with me. I don't need to call it a name, whether it's square or 135. 135 is a sesquiquadrat. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there's a contact. And it becomes like that. X equal A and B, X equals C and D, X equal E and F. How to interpret that? We're not doing it tonight. And the book helps you. But that's the pure representation of the school technique. This solar fire will give it to you, it looks like this. Solar fire gives you these things, but you have to know what you're looking at, and it's the same idea. And it's called midpoint trees. Remember, you've heard that. So these are the trees. These are the trees. Okay. Again, hard aspect. That's the idea. And precision. Midpoint on the dial. Now we're living in the 90-degree dial. Here's a regular chart. Ascendant 14 Leo, Mars at 16 Libra, and here is Saturn at 15 Virgo. Here with the I call it naked eye. Naked eye is looking at this as naked eye. With a naked eye, you wouldn't catch the fact that Ascendant and Mars midpoint falls on Saturn. You wouldn't. Nobody would. I would not. But then here's the dial. Here's Mars in the Libra in the cardinal area. Here is the Ascendant in the Leo in the fixed area. And the midpoint is on the red arrow, and it's on Saturn, exact, the most exact we can have. So again, cardinal, fixed, and this is immutable. So Saturn is an immutable. These lines, the software does it for you. I didn't draw it in. That's the beauty of it. The red arrow plus the lines, you got it made. Takes minutes to see these things. No computation, minutes. But it's fun to understand what you're looking at. So this is this one here. Simple. Okay. So then midpoints. This is Richard Branson, by the way. Okay. So midpoints are the 90 degree observed visually. And here, Mars ascendant equals Saturn. Mars ascendant equals Saturn. So from now on, if you read a Uranian article or something and you see equal, it's not a mathematical equal. It's not equation. It's an indication that things on this side make an aspect with that side, so they're equal, like an algebra in a way. Whatever is on this side makes a contact by aspect to what's on the other side. That's about it. So it's easy notation. It's easy to talk because we have so many. When I need to explain things, the amount of words that you would need, sentences, to describe all the technicalities is so large. We look for shorthand. So that equal business is like, I call it, this is shorthand for aspect. Someone left candy. What did that mean?
Cough drops.
Cold? Thank you. I won't be able to talk if I have mint in my mouth. Okay. Same idea. So we have the moon and Mars, and the midpoint between moon and Mars makes a square into Venus. With the naked eye, you'd never see it. Not in your lifetime. I wouldn't try it. It's too much. So here's the dial does it for me instantaneously. Here's Mars in the cardinal, moon in the Virgo in the mutable, and here's the midpoint on Venus. And okay, and Venus is immutable. So by 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so this is the idea that it can be right on or making a square to it. Doesn't matter which aspect. It's contact, and it's interpreted in the same way. It's interpreted by the planets, not by the aspect. Okay, the Trans-Neptunian planets, the Holy Grail, the heart and soul, in a way. So
Just
you
one
probably
second.
know what.
I'm just gonna quickly pass the basket for donations from my hand.
Can I continue? Oh, so you probably know the name. You probably know the glyphs, but here they are. We have 8 of them. Cupido, Hades, Zeus, Kronos, Pollen, Admeta, they kind of Poseidon. The sequence is the sequence of their discovery, and so in a way. Okay? We'll talk about the discovery in a minute. These are the glyphs, are extremely interesting, and I have more to say about all this. The first 4 were computed, it's computation, by Alfred Witte, all the way to Kronos. The last 4 were computed by his friend and colleague, Friedrich Ziegler, later. They were not accepted first, but eventually they were accepted, the last 4. And now we have all 8 of them in the book. Cupido was discovered in 1923. That's when Witte published for the first time, 1923. Made a huge splash. So let me go through this. Discovery of modern planets timeline. Uranus, asteroid by Giuseppe Piazzi in Sicily. I love that story of their discovery. Okay, so we have asteroids 20 years after Uranus. By the way, you know who gave the word named it asteroids? William Herschel, the one who discovered Uranus. He named it. He coined the word asteroid.
He also wanted to name
asteroid-
Uranus George.
Hmm?
He wanted to name Uranus
We know,
George.
we know that. Now that's the story of Uranus, but I'm talking about asteroids.
Interesting.
So there's, because it's only 20 years later and he was still alive. Anyway, then came Neptune. Now, Uranus was discovered with a telescope. Ceres, the first asteroid, was discovered with a telescope. Neptune was discovered mathematically. Major important point, mathematically first, and then observed with a telescope. Now we have the TNPs in the middle, you see that? And then Pluto also discovered mathematically, also.
Paris too.
I'm saying that every 100 years we have a planet, so I think we're due for a new planet. Another 100. Anyway, back to this one. The point is that it was already a tradition from Neptune on, no, from Uranus on. The world got used to the fact that, hey, we can discover more planets. Up until Uranus, it was up to Saturn, and that's it, nothing. Now, all of a sudden, hey, we can look at the sky and find more. So it became like, I call it a trend. The world of science was very excited about all this. Hey, maybe there's another one. So actually, the discovery of Pluto, the existence of Pluto, was surmised or considered even before the actual discovery. And that is why the observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, the Lowell Observatory was established in order to find such a planet, to find that elusive Pluto. The Lowell Observatory. By the way, a trip there is a must. I love it. Go to Flagstaff, Arizona. Go to that museum. It's a museum. It's beautiful. So what I'm trying to tell you that this was not an aberration to think there was something there. The only question is, how do you do? And Witte did it mathematically as well, mathematically and astrologically, not with a telescope. They have never been observed by telescope. Let me read through this whole thing. So I just said some of these things. By the time of the 20th century, astronomers had gotten used to discovering new planets. Mathematically, the existence of Pluto was already suspected before 1930. Early 20th century was so dramatic advancement in science in general, with Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg. That's my private joke. You know, by Breaking Bad, you know why I'll tell you later. It's the TV series Breaking Bad. I saw it maybe 3 times. Okay. Atomic theories, quantum physics, nuclear physics, everything was happening at the turn of the century. The world was really on steroids. The spirit of discovery was in the air. That's my feeling. Witte began his work around the beginning of World War I. He was a land surveyor for the city of Hamburg and an amateur astronomer and mathematician. He was influenced, this is important, he was influenced and inspired by predecessors. Predecessors mean the traditional astrology. That was like all of that. That was the background. But there was, I just recently read that there was another name before him in Germany who inspired him, and he also started something. I don't have more detail than that, but Witte paid attention. Okay. So in July 1923, he published the first Cupido. Published meaning the ephemeris and everything. It was there. He gave it to the world, to the Kepler group. Okay. Calculated using astronomical mathematical methods. Witte discovered the first 4, and Zygmunt, his supporter, later the other 4. The TNPs have not been observed by telescope, hence they're called hypothetical planets. The orbital periods point to possibility that they are in Kuiper-belt objects because of the length of time, the orbit. Like Cupido, the fastest is 248 years for an orbit. Poseidon, the last one, forget it, like a millennium almost, 700 years. So they hardly move by transit. But you know how they move? By solar arc. That's why I love it. Solar arc, you get tons of results because transit, it's nothing. In 10 years, nothing. But solar arc, they move. So this is a little bit of a background on the discovery. Okay. Now, keywords. I can spend like 2 weeks on this one, but I will not do it. This is a collection of keywords that I've collected over the years, gleaning from the book, the way I work with the book, to find the essence of each one of them. Some of these keywords appear when you read in the book, you have the planet with different combination of other planets. But when you go through all these combinations with the same planet, you begin to get a good sense of what that planet is all about. That's number one. Number two, it's because I do everything with traditional astrology, and I say that the system enhances the tradition. There are similarities and connections. The fact that there are similarities does not make it redundant. The fact that Cupido is similar to some of these things which I will discuss does not mean that it's redundant. It's not. It adds tremendous amount of nuances. And the nuances come from combination with planets. But here I'm not doing combination, just doing the planet itself. That's it. And the essence. So rather than read every keyword here, I decided to condense it into what I call the essence. Just finding 3 words or something that will at least get to the essence of it. The rest is in the real work. I'm not doing it. Needs 2 weeks to just do to every one of them. Okay. So start with Cupido. Look at the glyph. The glyph is a combination of Jupiter and Venus, kind of. The essence, unifying force, union, marriage, and sometimes art. I find that these first 3 words are gold when it comes to Cupido. But if you really want to get one word for Cupido, it's unifying. It brings together, connection, people, nothing else, people. And I added for each one of them equivalent into traditional. So if I see Cupido, very important Cupido on the dial, important meaning it's with a personal point and all that, speaks to me on the dial, I will go back to the traditional chart, and I do it all the time. When I work with these side by side, literally, side by side, this one here, all the time, because I need that. I need that reinforcement. I need integration. I refuse to leave one behind just because I'm using this. So I'm saying, and you can argue with this, but some of them, but still it's close enough. Equivalent, that's equivalent into the regular chart, so Venus or the node, and even Aquarius, because Aquarius is about groups and people who like to be together. So this is more, but the node is primarily here. It makes nodes a connection. We'll come to the node later. I'll come back to it. So it's kind of equivalent. But when I say equivalent, it's not just Venus or the node, it's the connection that they make. It's got to be a connection with something else. Nothing is by itself. Everything is with combinations. So now that you understand what I'm trying to show you, I'll talk about Hades. Hades is one of the less savory ones, okay? Less savory ones. And it's kind of has a reputation that way. By the way, the glyph is a combination of the moon and a cross. This is supposed to be a moon and a cross, like a Saturnian cross. So this is like very Saturnian, moon Saturn. Think of Hades as, among other things, moon Saturn. Anyway, equivalent, Pluto and Saturn, kind of. It has a Plutonian side, it has Saturnian side, and it's like, it's the equivalent. Essence, the shady, illicit side, lack and want. We will see some of this illicit. We have some great examples of the illicit. Not all of them I can show you, but I can tell you verbally about some of it. But it's also about lack and want, not having poverty and things like that, and illness and other things. It's not an easy point in the chart. In the past, I've heard kind of an opinion. People who didn't know Uranian said that they heard that Uranian is very negative. They heard that. They never experienced it. They were told that the Uranian, all these Trans-Neptunian are very negative. And I say the only negative, if you want to call it negative, is Hades. All the others, some of them are super positive. So so the fact that Hades has this reputation does not mean that all the others are the same way. So if you ever hear anybody say that, tell them they don't know what they're talking about. Really. It's nothing is negative about them. Only Hades has some interesting shady side. Zeus, like an arrow shooting up, fiery, and essence, energy, leadership, production. I have more keywords, but this is kind of captures things. Production, productivity, even fertility. Zeus is super interesting in situation of fertility and infertility. I have a whole lecture just on that one. The equivalence is Mars and Jupiter, like energy that shoots up. Kronos is one of the wonderful ones. Kronos, I call Kronos a man wearing a hat. It's a hat. And I have anecdotes about that one. So the essence, high level, mastery, authority. It's the best planet for authority. Equivalent, Sun plus Jupiter plus Saturn, and what's that? Exalted, Saturn exalted. So there's nothing negative about Kronos. Unless Kronos is with Hades, and the book will say it's the head of the mafia. Because it's like the president or the head of something. That can happen too. Next, the other four. Let's speed up. Apollon, combination of Jupiter and the sign of Gemini. So that already tells you about the essence. It's beautiful. Apollon is beautiful also. Assets, business, expansion, science. Big time. Business and expansion and science. Business, big time. Equivalent, Jupiter and Mercury. So nothing negative. It's really a wonderful point in the chart. Admetos is super interesting. Admetos, it's hard to find an equivalence with a traditional. Really hard. It's kind of stand by itself. Look how many keywords I have for that. And when you read through it, they look like, what's this got to do with that? So it's more complex. I'm not going to discuss that now. But Admetos is really different. Vulcanus also like power and shooting up. Essence, mechanical power, physical strength, influence. The book does not have the word influence. I have added it based on different experiences. But influence, if you have Sun with Vulcanus, it points to an influential personality. Influence, you have the power of the word. You can force your way through it. You have influence. Vulcanus with a node, connection with influential people, and so on. So the word influence is very useful for Vulcanus. Poseidon, the last one, essence, enlightenment, ideology, education. Equivalent, Neptune, but I wrote Neptune minus the bad stuff, minus all the negativity, then you get Poseidon. That's all I'm going to say. I remember discussing it with Michael Feist one time. I said, what about the god Poseidon was the god of the storms of the sea, was always very malefic force, destructive force. And what about the sinking of a ship and like the Titanic? And I asked Michael Feist, I went to the sinking of the Titanic and I saw Poseidon in that event, in that chart. And then I spoke with Michael and he said, yes, of course they knew it. The Hamburg people, they included that, the fact that it can be. But normally I don't have Titanic sinking in chart, but I do see a lot about the enlightenment and the ideology and the education. It's the spirit. It adds to that side of Neptune. So I'm done with the Trans-Neptunians. Where are they today? In case you don't have their numbers. So here they are literally today, November 6th. Cupido is at 8 Capricorn. When I give you these numbers, think modality. If you have 8 Aries, 8 Cancer, 8 Capricorn, 8 Libra, it's all connected with this one. Think modality, always modality. Poseidon 16 is Scorpio, Apollo 6 Scorpio, Zeus 25 Libra, and the rest of them. So this is where they are today. And because they move so slowly, you can expect them to be at these degrees for at least a year or 2 years. No big deal. Okay, I have stories, but I'll skip. Next. Okay, we have arrived. The Aries Point. Let's take a good look. Why the Aries Point is a personal point. You've heard about it as the world axis, but I'm telling you it's a personal point as well. So how does it work? First of all, what is it? Let's do a little astronomy. Here's where it's formed, the Aries Point. These diagrams are taken from my astronomy classes, my presentation for the astronomy classes. So, diagram A, we see how the tropical zodiac is formed. We have the ecliptic, which is the path of the sun, which is the zodiac, and we have the celestial equator at an angle, 23.5 degrees. The crossing point is 0 Aries, tropical, not sidereal. And the other side is 0 Libra. So this is how the Aries is formed, the 0 Aries. And we know with the precession of the equinoxes, it changes over millennia, but it's super slow. So that's what it is. So this is the Aries point. In the Uranian, when we say the Aries point, we also include 0 degrees of the other cardinal, not just Aries and Libra, but Cancer and Capricorn. Why? Simple. Here's the 0 Cancer, here's the 0 Capricorn. They make a square, remember? Opposition, square, and we use hard aspect, right? So conjunction, square, opposition, same thing. Aries point. And it really shines that way. So that's diagram number 1. Second diagram is the lunar nodes. Lunar nodes are formed by again, crossing point between 2 orbits, the orbit of the moon, the orbit of the sun. The orbit of the sun is the ecliptic, the orbit of the moon is around the earth. We project the orbit of the moon into space, becomes this way. And here's the crossing point, the blue and the red. Crossing point. The lunar nodes have the north and the south. I will put it together when I'm done with this one, okay? I'll show you. You'll see why I have all 3 in on one slide. So I started with the Aries point. I moved to the lunar node, and now I'm moving here. This is the midheaven. This is how the midheaven is formed. This is the Earth. This is you standing on Earth. This is your local meridian. The local meridian is your location from pole to pole, circle from pole to pole. And if you stretch it into space, project it into space, all the way out, it will cross the ecliptic right here. It's a crossing point here. So the local meridian, celestial local meridian, crossing the ecliptic. It's a crossing point. I didn't do the ascendant here, but because it's another diagram, but the ascendant would be similar. The ascendant would be a circle here, east to west, also crossing point here and here. So what do all these things have in common? Crossing point, crossing point, crossing point, crossing point. When I came into astrology, each one of them was we're not connected. You learn about each one separately, and you don't even hear about the Aries point at all. Aries point came into my life through the Uranian. So, as I was following the Aries point in the book, just flipping pages, I used to just flip pages in the book, in the rules book, and read combinations to get a sense of it. I noticed that when it came to the nodes, the keyword consistently was the word connection, consistently. And then a huge light bulb went off in my head, the word connection. because I understood the astronomy of it. I understood that it's connection because the two orbits are connected. A crossing point is a point of connection. If you walk on one person on the avenue, one person on the street, you will meet at the corner where they cross each other. So it's a meeting point. So I have a lot to say about it, and I spend a lot on the nodes, just on the fact that it means connections. So for me, the nodes are not about evolutionary astrology, not about past life. It's about connection. And that I picked up big time because of the uranium. That really was the key that opened it up for me, that interpretation. And I understood that it's because of it's a crossing point where things meet. And then I thought about it again. I said, wait a minute. The Aries point is the same thing, crossing point between two circles. The midheaven and the ascendant, same thing, crossing point between two circles. And we know from experience that, at least with the midheaven and the ascendant, when you have planets on an angle, that planet manifests like crazy. You connect into the world, into people around you through that planet. So it all gelled in my head. And I realized that all of them combined are personal point because they're formed in the same way and they carry the same meaning, the essential meaning. Two things that might not be connected are now connected because they touch each other. And then I extended that thinking to the Aries point itself, because everybody said world axis. World axis, things happen in the public. The word was public. I began to notice that it's not just public, it's really personal. It's a vocational point. Vocational, literally. Vocation, what we do for a living, we interact with the world. When you do something, you always interact with someone or with something. So it's a point of connection. Connect with something. Yes, there is a subtle difference because it's the world axis, because it touches the whole world. This is the whole world. Then the scope of what it is bigger than that. It's not just on the little mom and pop grocery store. It could be a bigger scope that touches more people, a bigger scale. That's it. My grandson has, this is a tiny example, has the midpoint of Mercury, Saturn on the world axis. Mercury, Saturn has to do with travel. Don't ask me to explain that. We don't have time for that. Mercury, midpoint, has to do with travel. The guy from childhood was interested in travel and maps and geography, and now his career is big time for the last 10 years, the travel industry, big time. And it's getting bigger and bigger, what he does, literally on a world level, international and so on. So it dawned on me that, hey, it's personal. He does it, that's what he does for a living. He's not famous or anything, just he has a job and he does that. That's it.
Does his chart support that in any other way?
Say it again?
Does his chart support that in any other way? Is it visible in the natal chart as well?
Not like that.
Okay.
In a way, yes. But would I be able to say that it has to do with travel? No. But the guy, when he was 18, his friends used to call him GPS because he knew how to drive anywhere without a map. It was so natural for him, the geography, the road, everything. Travel is natural for him, more than just travel agency. Yes, he has Jupiter on the midheaven. That's nice, but it doesn't necessarily mean travel.
Sorry, I missed what his profession was. I missed what you said his profession was.
He in the travel business, in the travel
He's in the
industry.
travel
I'll tell you privately later. Yeah. Yes, he's been doing it for 10 years now, very well, and it's getting bigger and better all the time. They're doing well. Again, these online travel companies, all that stuff, he's very good at that. But I saw it, but even before, when he was a teenager, remember how he read maps and he knew everything about the United States even before setting foot here. So it shows in so many places. So what I'm trying to tell you that when you see planet or midpoint is just as good as a planet. Take my word, midpoints are not secondary. They're wonderful. I'll say more about this so I don't forget. Planet on midpoint falling connected, aspecting the world axis. Think of it as well as a career indication, vocational. It just gives it a bigger scope. It doesn't have to be right on. It can be 22. Remember all these other aspects, the dots, the 22 and a half, the 45, as long as it's precise, no orb, works like magic. So don't worry about which aspect, just look for precision, that's all. About midpoints, actually, I'm going to say it now because I should have said it earlier. There's a lot of popular topic in the world of astrology, unaspected planets. People do lectures on that. And I sit there and I watch and I say, don't call a planet unaspected until you've looked at it on a 90-degree dial with midpoints. It's rare to find a planet doing without anything. It's possible. Once every 10 years, I'll find one. But connection with midpoint is a huge aspect, just as powerful. It's not unaspected, it's aspected. It's one of my high horses because I see all these lectures on unaspected and I say, they didn't really look good, well enough, and so on. So I'm glad I remembered to say that. So this is my point about the node, what they are astronomically, and how I interpret them as a point of connection, social connection, personal connection. Of course, I differentiate between north and south and all that stuff, but that's a bigger topic. I do take a look at north node and south node and all that. But if you look for one essence, the foundation of everything, the word connection is very good. It catches a lot of the meaning. So if you have a planet, let's say just a conjunction with a node, especially with the north node, your connection with people is through that planet, through the nature of that planet. That's the north node. 1 second.
My north node is with Mercury.
I rest my case. I rest my case. If you have a planet, I have to say it just because I see some people. Planet with a south node, it stands out with Venus big time, what I'm telling you. Lois Rodin had Mercury North Node. Lois Rodin, yeah. Planet with the South Node, especially the very personal ones, the South Node, it's still connections, but it ends up in separation. So the South Node separates. So it does have that quality, and I have a big shtick about it, not now, but I wanted to add these nuances. But you start with the word connections, and then you see where it takes you. And the planet that makes the aspect tight is the one that qualifies, that gives it the color. Okay, next. How do you keep your sanity with this multitude of factors? Not difficult at all, because I have a way of eliminating, not looking at the masses of things. You don't have to. You find the precision, you find the point that are precise, that speaks to you, and you focus on that. You don't have to interpret everything at once all the time. Leave some for later. Focus on what you relate to, compare it with the traditional, see if you can get some confirmation or so on, and then continue. When you do it for 40 years, like I have, and Faith McKinnon has done it even longer than me, you get so used to it, so you catch things faster. It's a matter of practice, but the tools help you. You don't compute. You just look at this and it jumps off the page. It jumps off the page in such a way that, when we normally look at a chart, we have this gut feeling. After so many years in astrology, you look at Uranus and the angle, and you don't even say the word, you know what it is. You relate to this visually as a gut feeling. The same with the Uranian. You get this gut feeling, you know what this is immediately. Only practice, that's it. Examples. So, I am going to spin the dial now because so far we've seen only fixed images of the whole thing. So we will see. We'll start here, and then I'll move to the software that does it live. Okay. So the point with this example is the following. Where's the president? In this chart, and the tradition, we're taught from day one that 10th house is the boss, the high level, high position. Nothing here. If you were to use equal whole sign, you would have Neptune here, right? Which I don't, but so there's nothing here, right? And the ruler is Mars, 8th house. Nothing really gives you what we expect as the president. On the dial, even before I spin the dial, just a static image. The Vulcanus is on the Aries point, the planet of influence and power. Venus is not too far, still too far, but not too far. But that's not the point. The point is that the midpoint of midheaven here and Jupiter here falls on this one. And that's the president. That's the success, the action in the public on a big way. In addition, we have Kronos. This is the Uranian that indicates high level and presidential power, presidential rank. Kronos is here with that mythos, and I'm not sure how to interpret that, but it's still there. And it's an exact aspect with that mythos. But the Jupiter and the midheaven is quite powerful, and as well as the node and Mercury. This is enough power in this midpoint to give the energy that this chart needs. Now that I have seen that, I can go back here and begin to analyze it again. And I did. I can say that the rule of the ascendant is in dignity, the Saturn. I can say that the moon is trine Jupiter. I can add all these positives to it. This is integration. I can add the fact that the Leo is angular. I can add that Mercury and the Leo is square Neptune, and that's a different story. I'm not going to go there and so on. So I am going to spin the dial now and show it in action, live. Did you want to say something, Danny? No? Okay. Allow me to get out of this and move, and I'm changing the screen, okay? I'm activating. Why is that?
That's because we just had.
Oh, wait a minute. I need to get out of the PowerPoint, Danny. Stop share.
If you stop sharing.
Maybe stop share and come back to the share.
No, here, let me
Mhm.
show you. What you can
Uh,
do is we'll
Mhm.
just click escape. And then can we close, we'll minimize.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, yes.
How much longer do you want to talk
Hmm?
for? How much longer do you want to talk for?
I want to start some charts.
Okay, maybe another half an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so probably like another 20 minutes of like chart examples, or you all?
Oh, you want to take a break?
Later?
You want a break?
No, I'm just,
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
checking,
Okay. Let me,
Working on would you all be interested in like a meetup on like this, just a couple of questions. Would you all be interested in a meetup on the nodes and connection?
Yes.
Because I've been hearing this for years in my studies that like the German school connected the nodes more of a connection, but I think it'd be really interesting wouldn't that be interesting to have an astrologer like go with some of the source text and then like walk us through maybe that alternate approach to the nodes?
Yeah,
Maybe that be
different.
folks, I have to sit down because I have to really navigate this one. So I'll be speaking from here
That's
and
fine.
I'll show you a few things.
Also, just one more question while she gets things like organized. Would it be interesting to all of you to do a series of Uranian lectures where we invite Mayura or Faith to speak on each of the particular planets, like one lecture just on Hades. Like one lecture just on Admetus. Would that be interesting to you? Like,
Yeah.
would that?
I mean, as much as we can learn, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
would that be? Okay, good. I'm just trying to understand like what topics are interesting to people, because like there's so much here and there's so much further we can
Because a
go.
lot of
I
us do
think
not
you
use
for-
the trans-Neptunian planets, so I
I-
think a lecture on those would be
Really, I
helpful.
mean, really to go deeper and like
Yeah.
each Trans-Neptunian is completely
Yes.
different, right?
Yeah.
But I think before you go to the TMPs, I mean, when you, in Gary's book, he's doing it as an appendix because they give Uranian, a bad name.
Why?
Because people like are so, as he said, in England, if you go to England, they hate them. So, but I think we should, it will be better to do like a full lecture on the personal points on or, the main building blocks of it before we go to the TMPs.
Okay, cool.
Even
Let's
though
talk
the
more.
TMPs do add that incredible nuance to a picture.
Do you think Gary might want to present as well?
Well, you're ready. Are you ready to talk?
I can hear.
Okay, so let's let her continue the lecture and we'll continue to talk and strategize.
Did the people agree to this idea?
Yeah, people, we're just
Yeah.
trying to see it, so, okay.
Well, Faith has been doing it for years now. Faith has been writing articles specifically about specific combinations. So Faith is a master at that as well. Yes. Yes. Okay. So I have to sit down because I have to spin the dial and put the arrow on different things, just to show you. So when this is a Nova chart wheel. And when you open a chart in this view, the arrow always starts on the Aries point. That's how it starts. So here it is. It's what you saw already. Now, I wrote some notes for myself where to put the arrow to show you things because it is so much that I cannot memorize everything. So my notes say put the arrow on Jupiter. So I'm moving. Before I do that, you see you see the movement? I point to a planet and the arrow goes there and it finds more aspects, the dots. So, for instance, the arrow now is on Poseidon and the black dot is on Mars. The black dot is 22.5 degrees and this is within orb. So this is a connection between Poseidon and Mars. Connection, aspect. The other side of the arrow, the other end of the arrow is not too far, a little far, but not too far from midheaven. So that also gives me something about Poseidon. My note says arrow on Jupiter. Here's the president again. Arrow on Jupiter. The midpoint is Kronos here, Vulcanus Aries Point here. That's the president. Why am I saying this? Because Kronos is wonderful for indication of an elevated position. Can be the president of the country, the president of the company. The Kronos is also about excellence and mastery. It's more than that. So I love Kronos. It's a great component in our pantheon of planets. So that's arrow on Jupiter, and it's precise. You see, I did nothing. I just placed the arrow on a planet, and the line is formed by the software. So that is so easy to see. And not only the midpoint of Vulcanus and Kronos, but also Cupido here is on the black dot, which is 22.5. So we have a combination of 4 components. Cupido and Jupiter and Vulcanus and Cronus. This is awesome. All of them positive, all of them. And that's, if you put them together in your head, that's Barack Obama. Okay, what else do I have for him? Arrow on Cupido. Now we have midpoint of midheaven, here it is. arrow on Cupido, the midpoint at the bottom, you see ascendant and midheaven. That is a unifier, a union. This one creates a union. Okay, ascendant, midheaven, the most personal points falling on Cupido. Another one, arrow on the moon. Moon is with Zeus. Another wonderful combination. This is kind of funny. I see a Hades here, but I'm not going to interpret it right now. And then arrow on Kronos itself, and this gives me Cupido and Saturn. So what you're seeing is me pointing planet by planet, okay? And that's what I do. So I have a sequence, but eventually I end up pointing to all the planets and discover. It's a process of discovery. And when it's precise, I note it, I make a note, maybe if it's a client, I will jot down a little note and continue. So this is a process of exploration. I have to tell you that when I prepare for reading, I start with the traditional always, but I can't wait to get to that step. It's like a sense of adventure. What will I discover? Sometimes what I call discovery, I make a bet against myself, like a play, not a game, but I bet against myself. I see something in the traditional, and I'll say, I think I'm going to see this and this and this on the dial. So I test myself, I test my understanding of what I'm going to find out. So that's why you teach yourself all the time. Teach yourself all the time by cross-reference all the time. I'm not going to interpret every chart, every example, because we don't have time, but I just want to spot check a few names that you know and think that can highlight my point. Okay, so now we're moving to another one. I'm going to close this one, otherwise there's too much. And now we have Camilla. I arranged my examples according to the planets. That's why we have Camilla here, because of Kronos. She married Kronos, right? She married the king, right? So for Camilla, I have let me move to Camilla in the PowerPoint first, because I don't have it here. Yes, I have it here. Okay, Camilla. In the PowerPoint, I point out something that I didn't mention earlier, and that's predictive. I did mention solar arc. So doing solar arc predictive on the dial, you see on the right side, the planets on the short stick are natal. The planets on the long stick are the solar arc, okay? And I highlighted in yellow. Look at the sun here on Cupido, solar arc, sun on Cupido by solar arc, when they got married, April 5th, 2005. She married the king, finally, after all these years of being in the 12th house. She's still in the 12th house, but she married the king. She married a Kronos guy, okay? And that natal, I'm sorry, not Kronos, Cupido, I'm sorry. I mixed my metaphor. 1 second, let me start again. Sun on Cupido, not Kronos. Cupido is family. She married, I call it the firm. The firm. She married the firm, the family. So she got into the family. But it's also that Cupido is also with the moon here, so this whole thing is activated. The natal Cupido with the moon midpoint falling on Aries natally, and now the sun has arrived there. When the sun arrives at one of these combinations, it activates it. So she activated her Cupido big time, but Kronos is not here, not in this example, not in this slide. Let me move to this one. And I have arrow on Kronos, yes. So this is natal, not predictive. Arrow on Cronus because I needed to check that. It doesn't really stand out terribly, but you cannot see it. It's too small. Let me see if I can enlarge that. You cannot see it, but where the sun is, there's a dot. And that dot is the tiniest aspect that we use. It's kind of here. It's the 5 and 5/8. Remember when we divide, the smallest is 5 and 5/8. And when you do the, I see it not here. I need a bigger screen for that. On my big screen on my desktop, I can see that. See the laptop. You cannot see the 5 and 5/8. So the smallest dot that you can see is 11 and a quarter, this one here, but not the smallest. So this is Camilla and Cupido, basically. Now I have a beauty. And that is, now I'll show it first with a PowerPoint. Do you know this woman? The Millionaire Matchmaker with the TV shows. She's been doing it for years. I used to watch it a lot and do a guessing game with myself about those candidates and what they have in their chart because it was always a disaster. They were all losers. All of them. But it was fun to watch, second guess everything. And then one day I obtained her chart, and then my jaw dropped. So this is the regular chart that I obtained, and it has sun opposite moon, first house, ascendant, descendant, well, relationships, right? Right. At the same time, she herself, Venus square Saturn, not so hot, right? We're talking just about her matchmaking, that's it. Matchmaking for other people, but also about herself. She never got married. She almost got engaged and then it went away. She barely had any real relationships. So here is like a conundrum, like a paradox. Because her natal chart this way does not speak about relationships. Saturn square Venus and Sun opposite Moon like that. It's not exactly a good prescription. And yet she became very famous. She brags that she gets the best results and gets the best advice and gets the best result, on and on and on. I didn't see that when I was watching her all those episodes. Now on the dial, look what she has. Sun, Jupiter midpoint, falling on Cupido, that's the matchmaker. She tries to, and on midheaven here. So Cupido is her midheaven, it's her career. She tries to do a Cupido thing for herself and for others. So to me, it's incredible how the Uranian can take something and put such a huge, like a projector, put a huge limelight on the whole thing. It makes you think, is she or isn't she? Is she about relationship? Is she not? Can she do it or can she not? It's like, if I had to decide, if she's my client and I had to decide whether it works or not, the traditional will give me the bottom line, the situation, and that's the Venus, Saturn, and all that. But the fact that what all she's doing is amazing when we see the Cupido in her on the dial. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about her because I want to show more examples. So next is okay. The next I'll go directly to the dial without the PowerPoint. The Patty Stanger right here. And I'm going to close it because I said enough about her. Next is another one for Cupido, a very different one, and that's second. Jimmy Hoffa, labor union leader who died and nobody knows how and the circumstances. But he was a very famous and successful leader of the labor union at the time. I cannot say I remember it because I didn't even live here, but people who are old enough and remember the local history would know the name.
Teamsters,
Hmm?
the Teamsters. The union is the Teamsters.
Yes, okay. Okay, the Teamsters, okay. Well, as you can see, I'm not an expert, but the fact that he was a leader of labor union is significant here. And to me, it's the keyword is union, which is Cupido. That's my point. So here on the dial, I know what my plan was to show you a little bit live dial and then show you these statically just to catch the highlights because you've seen how it moves already. So I stay with the PowerPoint now. So you see the arrow is on Mars and Cronus and the midheaven on the other side. So that's once Cronus is involved with personal points, you know that the person occupies a very significant high position. That's my point. Cronus always gives you some high level position. And you see the node highlighted with a black dot, 22.5. That's union. The nodes bring in the union, the connection. Not Cronus here. Yeah, I'm sorry, Cronus here, union is Cupido. I need to spin the dial for that. I'm not going to spin the dial. We've seen enough. Let me continue with the next one.
Call us on Sunday.
6. The next one is client. Client. This is predictive. This is very recent, like the last few weeks, last month or so. Young guy. He is into doing Reiki things. And he says to me he wants to start what he calls a foundation that will provide education and education health related. These are his words. He called it foundation. Here's what I see. Solar arc Cupido comes to the sun right now for him. And his sun is at 0 Aries, 0 Capricorn actually. So he wants to start. Will he be successful? 100% yes. Because he is natally the sun at the right place at the 0 at the Aries point, and Cupido is coming there. So this is predictive. Okay. Next is Hades. Yes, you know the fellow. Has been in the news for a long time now. Okay. I call it big money corrupts at the highest level. Now I have to move to the dial because now we don't see anything here. So what do I have here? Hades equals sun. I'm putting it's very much a Hades story. Where's Hades? Okay. So you got Hades with Jupiter. That's money. Jupiter is always about wealth and money and also success, but we're on the shady side of things. And he has Hades equals sun. You don't see it here, but the sun is on the dot here. So this is a tiny aspect between Hades and the sun. The fact that these are tiny numbers does not make a difference. It's true that the conjunction or the squares have more presence. But in my experience, planets that are very tight, even on the tiny aspect, it carries just as much significance. Faith, do you agree? We do that all the time. Yes. Once you begin to trust those dots, big or small, I call it trust because at first you say, how can it be? Look at that number. Once you start to trust it that it works, I trust it, or I don't question it. I see it, I know it's there. But it didn't start like that for me. I took a while before I said, yeah, I can accept it. Okay. So that's Hades' sun, but it also has the midpoint of ascendant and Cronus falling on that. So yes, it was the Teamster, the labor union, but there was a lot of shady side in it, and that's why it disappeared. And somewhere in New Jersey, nobody knows where and how. Okay. So he did have a connection with the shady side of maybe mafia or things like that. I should be careful when I say these things, but it's well known.
This is the crypto.
Okay. Okay. Next is, I'm closing this down. I just want to show you a few more names, and then I want to show you a few slides, and that's it. Okay, next is a, okay. Oh, this is fun. I'll just tell you the story. Young female client. This is the chart. She was born in the year 1984. So many my clients were born in that year, and they all had that conjunction with Pluto and Saturn and Scorpio and so on that year. Anyway, she has Venus and Hades midpoint falling on the midheaven. The ascendant is also there, but Hades, Venus, Hades is the shady side, the illicit side of Venus. You can translate it any way you want. So the text says, she was fascinated with sex from a young age. It all started when I started asking her about sexuality because of the dial. The dial gave me the clue. The Hades Venus gave me the clue, plus the Saturn Venus in Scorpio. I started asking about sexuality, and I was not afraid to do that. There's a way of doing it. And then she told me that she was even 8 years old. Her mother would go out, leave the house, and she would watch porn on television. And she was fascinated by that. And then that was not the end of it, because when she came to me, it was a few years before she came to me, she did that. She had a relationship, let's call it for money, with an older man somewhere on the West Coast. She told me everything. So it was there when she was little, as porn on TV. Then as an adult, she actually did that. This is an example of how the dial gives you an idea that you didn't think about before, because this is so specific. Venus Hades is so specific on this. Cannot never go wrong on these things. It's always that illicit, shady side of what Venus can do. Next, I'm going to continue with 55. 56. Well, you know who this one is. He's currently in the White House in the Oval Office. Look at what I wrote here. Did he or didn't he? Remember all those discussions? Did he do it? And he sued everybody? Actually, I wrote an article which is on the website of the Uranian Society exactly on that. Way back, even before. That's not the title of the article. Actually, the title of the article is Hades as evidence in the courtroom, something like that, about evidence in the courtroom. And to me, this is evidence that he did. So on the dial, the personal point, the moon, volcanoes, nodes, they're all highlighted in yellow. The ascendant, the midpoint falls on Hades Venus. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah.
And you would not necessarily say that by just looking at his regular chart. You would not. You don't, the sexuality does not, or the illicit sexuality does not jump off the page. But on the 90-degree dial, it jumps off the page. So the dial can either reinforce something that we know, or discover things that you didn't even think about. And I never know in advance. I will not be able to tell you in advance what I'm gonna see. Will I see confirmation of something or revelation? That's why it's a big adventure. Every time I do the dial, it's like, wow, it's an it's an it's I just like it. I call it adventure. Some of my students, I really turned them on to my private students. I turned them on to the dial, and we have the same reaction. Wow, look at that. Okay, so this is you know who, and now let me continue a few more. 56. We'll skip this one. This is Andrew,
Why?
who's not a prince anymore. You can see the dial actually on the right side. You see the dial arrow on Hades, and we have Sun Kronos, and he doesn't have Kronos anymore. He was stripped of all his Kronos titles, and Saturn. So we have Hades involved. Not Venus, but Sun Hades. Good enough. Shady, shady, shady. Next. I have one for Zeus. I love this one. I don't know if you remember the name, Werner von Braun. He developed all the rockets for World War II in Germany. And then after that, he was brought into the United States. He kept the same work, working for NASA. So he loved space. He didn't care who he was building rockets for, as long as he can build rockets. And Zeus, one of the incredible manifestations of Zeus is armed firearms and weapons. I will not show you the chart, but when Charlie Kirk, you know what happened, was shot, I immediately went to the chart. And it's a solar chart, there's no time of birth. I rectified it. But even without rectification, Charlie Kirk has in his natal chart very strong aspect between Zeus and Mars, and I can't remember, it falls on a personal point. So when you have Zeus, Mars can shoot. Zeus is firearms. So it was in the chart. It is. Okay, so this is Werner von Braun. I love his chart, the Aquarius in his chart and so on. But look at the dial. The dial really tells you the story of the weapon building and the rockets and all that. Arrow is on Zeus. You can see that, it's all highlighted. Arrow is on Zeus. The midpoint is Mercury and Cronus. He was an incredible scientist. He was into space from age 11. All he wanted to do is build rockets to go to the moon as a child. So that is Cronus. Mercury is really appropriate here. He also has ascendant and midheaven midpoint on Zeus. Everything leads, in his chart, everything leads to that Zeus. Would I say that in the regular chart, traditional? I don't know. Here's Mars with Pluto. It's not really, I wouldn't be able to say it so directly. The chart, the dial nails it, literally nails it. Sometimes the dial is an unbelievable sometimes, all the time actually. So this is Werner von Braun. Next is, remember the child who was discovered at age 14? Remember that? Schwarzenegger? The world find out that he had fathered a child with a woman who did their household work, okay? So of course, the dial shows you arrow on the midheaven here, midheaven Uranus, and Venus Hades here, midpoint of Venus Hades here, Cronus, but here's Venus Hades is the culprit. The illicit, first of all, it's illicit relationship, not his wife, but it's also the woman who's in a position of service, which is another interpretation of Venus Hades in the book. Service. But very often it's service of a certain kind. Okay. So this is Again, the dial shows you something that the regular chart would not be so specific about. Next. Another one. Apropos fertility, because Zeus is fertility, big time. Zeus Venus is fertility, and Arnold also had that. So, talk about the guy who wants to populate the world with his own sperm. And he says that. It's his ideology. He says that the world, there's not enough replenishment of population, not enough younger people coming up through the ranks. And we need to have more children. The human race needs to have more children. Where would they live? On Mars, on the moon, but and he does what he can to do to practice what he preaches. And we know the story. So he has 14 known by now it's 14 and maybe more that we don't know about. So he has the arrow on midpoint and we have a pollen. When a pollen appears in a combination, not only does it indicate wealth, I said wealth, but it also multiplicity. And when it comes to pregnancy in children, it's multiple children. I don't have the chart here, but if you remember the Octoman, remember the woman who had 8 babies and everybody was getting on her case for that. She had big time Apollon in her chart in connection with the fertility points. So Apollon multiplies things, makes things. The keyword is many, not one, many. Next is we're almost done because we have one more guy who likes to make children. Pavel Durov, the one who created Telegram, the messaging systems. If you use Telegram, he created it. Look at the picture of the sperms swimming around him. So he outdoes Elon Musk because he has over 100 children, fathered all over the world, sperm donation. He will be the first one to admit it, but he's doing a noble job, a noble act. He said that he will leave all his very young and trillionaires, he will leave all his money to those children. He said that clearly in public more than once. But again, it's kind of an ideology, weird ideology. It's terrible. Can you imagine one of these children dating someone they discover that they're siblings?
Likely.
It happens. So weird. And again, Zeus is involved. You see arrow on Venus, Zeus and Vulcanus. Vulcanus adds intensity to the whole thing. I think I'm just about done. Yeah. Let's see if I can. Yeah, easy. The story is Apollon as moneymaker and business maker. Steve Jobs has Apollon with the you see that at the top right here. Apollon here, moon here. The arrow is on the Aries point. So again, midpoint falls on Aries. It's a personal point. Aries is a personal point. And he's manifesting his Apollon. Next is his body equivalent. Mr. Gates, same thing. Apollon. Again, Apollon shows up with the midheaven here and the ascendant here. And also here, Apollon and Mercury on the midheaven and Venus. So you don't have to split hairs whether it's midheaven or ascendant. It's all personal point. So once you relieve yourself, don't try to be too specific. Personal points, it brings out the Uranian. It brings out by itself, but when it's in combination, midpoint or other, it begins to shine. So you see, in regular astrology, you can say, oh, I have Saturn in the 10th house. So, or whatever house. Just by being in the house, you interpret it. We don't do it in Uranian. I don't say Cronus is in my 4th house. That's meaningless. I'll say Cronus conjunct a specific degree, planet or angle. That's the difference. So it's a system that requires precision. And if you're okay with precision and detailed work, you need a strong Saturn for that as well, then it's easy breezy and fun. Literally fun. It's not more work, it's more fun. Okay, so I'm done, and I want to just wrap it up by this. There's an event you don't know about. On November 18th, I'm going to do a lecture, and the title is The Quantum Leap of Aspects, Rethinking Aspect Geometry. I'll say quite a few things that I said today, but I'll go much further than that, only about aspects. I call it the quantum leap. It's a completely new idea. Not new to me, but new. I've never presented it. My first presentation of this idea. And it's going to be for the Uranian Kepler group. I don't do the registration, so if you're interested, write to me and I'll tell you how to register for that. You register with the Gloria, forget her last name, she organized.
Lorenzo. Gloria Lorenzo.
Right. So it's already scheduled. Then I want to point out my new creation, my new Zeus creation, Excellence in Astronomy. It's a book on astronomy. All my teaching on astronomy over the years, now it's in a book. It's an e-book, and I'm still expanding it. But this is the major output of it, and it's an electronic book, and you can get it if you want. Write to me, and I'll let you know how you can get it. If you ever studied with me, you got a taste of this when I teach astronomy. But this is even beyond what I teach in regular level 1 astronomy. Very comprehensive. I call it Excellence in Astronomy, and it's an electronic book. Then these are books that Danny mentioned, my translations from Hebrew, medieval Hebrew into English, astrology. And these are the names. I'm not going to detail them. This is another important work that I've done, an article. It's also on academia.edu, an article. And that's all she wrote.
Okay, great. So,
The Three Musketeers.
thank you so much for that introduction. So let's keep in touch. We want to do more partnerships with the Uranian Society. So let's keep thinking about how we want to structure future topics. And this is a great intro that we can include, like, whenever Faith, you give a talk, or maybe we'll get, some people to talk or down from the community. So have a great night. If a few people can stay and help me put away the chairs and the AV equipment, that would be great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Never like sometimes people will extend force. Which is a so amazing. Yes, I can give margins. Yes, I'm glad to see you to recognize it. Maybe to keep. I know.
Are you doing okay?
On dividing, and then crossing, is that? Standards, you see 20. It's never.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Thanks for coming out.
Danny, can you erase my table?
Sí, se lo claro, that there's like very specific way.
I missed the book that you translated, Kabbalah. What did you translate?
It's early, I cover night stuff, mysticism.
No, I know what it is, but with your Sapir Yesari, that's what you translate? And, okay, I will look. Now, let me ask you something. When you spoke of like Elon Musk and the kids and everything, did you see anything weird? Because there's rumors you see that you had tried to get an operation on his penis, and it's like weird. Yeah.
That I didn't know, but I saw Thursday, Saturn, Neptune, very problematic in his chart.
Okay, but that's a rumor. It's not necessarily, but he wanted to get.
No, but Jeffrey Epstein, that time,
Wow.
what you just said.
Oh, he had an operation?
Operation, but it was something very weird.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Very-
No, but they said he wanted to get enlarged and then something happened and it's deformed. Elon, yes, and he did a lot of the childbearing with in vitro. But that's a rumor, you know what? You can't believe everything on the internet.
Where the smoke, there's fire. Think of it that way.
It's very interesting. It's hard for me to get my head around all of it, but I'm gonna look into your stuff and yeah. And
Put it-
right.
Today,
But then the Kabbalah also is astrological and planetary. The Kabbalah, Tree of Life is very astrological and planetary. Yeah, and there's like tarot cards that have that the Hebrew letters are all connected, the planets, mother letters, probably no. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for speaking.
What do you say goodnight? Yeah, that is, so one hand cut. There's since they're not really very up there changes. Yeah. Not in that corner, only in each corner. People, we're gonna start talking, stop.
Because I'm just putting it together.
You know, I studied Uranian Astrology with a teacher that was teaching me everything by hand. And it was a little bit of a nightmare because you have to be really precise. And you have to move the wheel and with the arrow, and you have to click it there and mark and have it in a.
Here's my hand.
And I was like, why do we have to do it by hand? There are application. And she would be, my teacher would be like, you have to do it by hand. So, no, Melba Ortiz.
Oh, I know, Melba.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It's not about small, it's just like.
I haven't seen him in a while, but actually I'm gonna call her. Just talk to her.
From there.
Well, my pleasure. And I'm like, I don't wanna do it by hand, I wanna do it application so I can learn other things. And she was like, no, you gotta do it by hand.
So Christmas gift to yourself, it's not cheap.
Yes.
They always you're having 15% discount code. I'll show you.
Okay, I look into it.
15% discount code on that one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Put this one here on the floor for now. You want me to put this one somewhere? Oh,
Yeah, I'll get everything just
I'm gonna put it here.